You walked past a crow this morning. You didn't notice it. It may have noticed you. Most people treat crows like background. Black shapes on power lines, parking lots, the tree outside your window. Something the city just comes with. But in 2006, John Marzluff at the University of Washington put on a specific mask, walked onto campus, and trapped 7 crows. What happened next echoed for 17 years. And the strange part, the part that changes what you think a crow is carrying, wasn't that the crows remembered the mask. It was what happened to that memory after, where it went, how long it lasted, and which birds were carrying it years later. Most people, hearing that crows can recognize faces, assume the story ends there. Smart bird, good memory, impressive. But what Marzluff found wasn't just that the crows remembered the mask, it was what the recognition looked like in practice. After the trapping, researchers walked the same campus routes wearing the same mask, and the crows reacted. Different people could wear it. The crows still scolded and mobbed the face, not the person behind it. The face. A specific set of features, attached to a dangerous memory, and from then on, that face triggered a response every time it appeared. The mask was the thing that mattered. The person could change. The face was everything. That would be interesting enough on its own. But the number of crows reacting to the mask kept growing, not because Marzluff was trapping more birds. He wasn't. The original 7 were already released. Many of the new birds had never been trapped, never been handled. Their only exposure was watching other crows react. But they scolded the mask anyway. What the research showed was that crows were learning the dangerous face by watching other crows respond to it. One bird scolded, others observed, others joined. The response moved through the local population, not through experience, but through observation. The strange part wasn't that one crow remembered. The strange part was that the warning moved. But here is where it gets harder to explain. Some of the crows that learned the dangerous face weren't adults that had seen the trapping happen. They were young birds, juveniles still on the family territory, watching their parents react to the mask. Marzluff's team tested what happened after those young birds left. After dispersal, new territory, no parents around, they still scolded the same face. They had never been trapped. They had never seen the original event. They had watched adults react, and that was enough. The classification had moved from one generation to the next through nothing more than observation. One crow's experience, another crow's warning. Not because they were told, because they watched. So how long can a warning like that last? Marzluff kept walking the campus in the same mask, year after year. The response didn't fade. It grew. 7 years in, he reported that 47 of the 53 crows he encountered on one walk scolded the mask. That is a local population that had held onto a warning across years and generations. Then it began to taper, slowly. By September 2023, 17 years after the first trapping, Marzluff reported walking the campus in the same mask and hearing nothing. The warning had lasted longer than individual birds could be expected to hold it alone. By the time the response had spread, the original 7 crows were no longer the point. Many of the crows reacting years later were not among the birds originally trapped. They were birds that had learned the dangerous face from watching other birds react. The warning was no longer limited to the animals that first experienced it. It had moved, not genetically, not magically, socially, through observation, through scolding, through the repeated sight of other crows treating one face as dangerous, not one bird's memory. The flocks. This is not a human ability that crows happen to share. Crow brains and human brains evolved along entirely separate paths. They are built differently, but brain imaging showed that when a crow sees a face it is classified as dangerous, it activates systems involved in recognition, memory, and threat response. Different architecture. Similar solution. 2 separate lines of evolution. Both ended up needing to know who to watch out for. We call it a grudge. It makes the behavior feel familiar, like something you would recognize in yourself. But the research does not require a crow to be sitting somewhere replaying the event, stewing, remembering the wrong. What the evidence shows is more precise than that. A face marked as dangerous, stored, then retrieved when that face appears again. Not resentment. A warning label, set in 2006, carried forward through the flock, still active years later in birds that were never there when it was placed. We call it a grudge. But what the crows kept was the face. Somewhere above your street, that same kind of warning may already exist, Not just in Seattle. Wherever crows are watching each other. If one crow has a threatening encounter with a specific human face, that information can move. Through observation, through scolding, through the flock. You may not be in that memory, but standing under the power line, there is no way to know. The flock does not announce what it remembers. The warning that began in 2006 did not stay inside the 7 birds that were trapped. It moved through the population. It spread through observation, through scolding, through young birds watching older ones react to a face they had never personally encountered. It grew. It peaked. At one peak, almost every crow Marzluff encountered on that walk reacted to the mask, and then slowly, it faded. By September 2023, 17 years after the first trapping, Marzluff walked the same route in the same mask. Nothing. No scolding. No mobbing. At some point, the flock forgot. Not because one bird made a decision, not because the memory was erased, because the warning stopped being passed on. The chain of observation seems to have broken somewhere. Fewer reactions for young birds to watch, fewer chances for the face to be renewed, until the classification no longer carried forward. It faded the way a language fades when the last speakers stop teaching it. Not erased, just no longer carried. You walked past a crow this morning. You didn't notice it. It may have noticed you. Somewhere in that bird is a system built to recognize faces, store threat information, and pass warnings to others through nothing more than observation. Most of the time, that system is quiet, but it is always running, and you will never know what it is carrying.